Good evening. This is Dr. O'Brien, Superintendent of Schools, and I would like to welcome everyone to our Joseph A. Edgar Intermediate School Virtual Public Meeting. I would like to begin by thanking the Board of Education, teachers, staff, administrators, parents, guardians, and community for their tremendous input and support throughout this reopening process. While we recognize that the reopening of schools will look different than in years past, we assure you that our buildings will continue to be welcoming places of learning, excitement, and joy for our JAE students. Just as we have reimagined our methods for delivering instruction, we will continue to find new ways to inspire and nurture all of our students. The health, safety, and overall well-being of our JAE students, staff, parents, and community are the driving forces behind all decisions regarding the reopening of our schools and the protocols we have put in place. Parents were provided with a form to submit questions for the public meeting being held this evening. Tonight, members of our administrative team will be presenting the various aspects of our JAE Students' Day and answers to these questions to best support a smooth transition as we return to school in September. Should you have any additional questions during the public session, a link under the announcements section of the district's homepage will be available between 7 and 7:30 for parents to submit questions. These questions will be addressed at the end of the public session. At this time, I would like to introduce Mrs. Suzanne Crossan, Assistant Superintendent, who will be presenting on the Joseph A. Edgar Intermediate School academic program. Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to share a brief overview of the academic reopening plan for Joseph A. Edgar Intermediate School. JAE will return to full in-person instruction 5 days a week for all students in grades 3 through 5. We added 10 additional sections to our elementary buildings to decrease class size and allow for social distancing. Students will be spaced 6 feet apart with approximately 18 desks in each classroom. In addition, orders have been placed to supply each student desk and teacher desk with a trifold clear plastic shield for additional protection. We are working hard to receive these before the first day with our students. Students will remain in their class with their class cohort and will have specials pushed into each classroom to help decrease interaction among groups of students and decrease the use of shared spaces. Specials such as physical education, music, art, and library will take place in the general education classrooms and may be conducted in other large areas of the building or outdoors when possible. All students and staff will be required to wear face masks throughout the day unless it is a designated time for a mask break with all students 6 feet apart, or if students are eating lunch. Lunch will take place in the classroom with outdoor recess, weather permitting. The district will also be offering a 100% virtual model for students in grades 3 through 5. This virtual program will be a blend of live synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Parents who choose this model for their children must commit to being virtual for the full school year. A Chromebook will be provided at the start of the school year to facilitate this remote learning format using Google Classroom. Teachers and administrators will work collaboratively to discuss standards prioritization to ensure that instruction is appropriately supporting student achievement. Virtual school days will align with in-person instruction, and final virtual schedules will be developed. Google Meet sessions will be scheduled throughout the week to provide synchronous instruction and opportunities for students to see and interact directly with their teachers. Additionally, teachers will record asynchronous videos via Screencastify and other similar programs to serve as additional resources for students. Google Classroom will be used to facilitate the distribution and collection of assignments, graded assessments, and curriculum support. In the event that the governor closes school for all students, all classroom teachers will deliver instruction using this method, and Chromebooks will be provided for all students. At this time, I'd like to introduce Kristen White, our Executive Director for Pupil Personnel Services, who will speak to you about our special education program.
Thank you, Mrs. Crossan. Good evening. The Rocky Point Union Free School District will continue to provide a free, appropriate public education consistent with the need to protect the health and safety of students with disabilities and those providing special education services. At JAE, Rocky Point will provide all special education services as well as accommodations and modifications as indicated on each child's individualized education plan or 504 plan. Related services will be provided as a push-in or pull-out with consideration given to maintaining the integrity of cohorts. Whenever possible, related services may be provided as a push-in. However, it may be necessary to pull students out of the classroom in order to properly deliver the related service. If pull-outs are necessary, the related service provider will follow social distancing guidelines. Because related services are provided individually or in a small group, it is possible the provider can extend social distancing beyond 6 feet. For those parents who do not want their child to participate in in-person instruction, the district will ensure that students with disabilities receive equal access and educational benefits that are comparable to those provided to all other students in the 100% virtual model. If parents of students with disabilities elect a virtual model, the manner in which services are provided will change. Special education services can be provided by Rocky Point personnel through enrollment in the Eastern Suffolk BOCES online elementary program, or through an agency who provides certified teachers or related service providers. Additionally, while COVID-19 precautions are being implemented during the 2020-2021 school year, visitors to school buildings will be limited. As such, CSE meetings will continue to be conducted through teleconference and/or video conference using Zoom. I'd like to invite Dr. O'Brien back to the podium to speak about transportation, facilities, and food service.
Thank you, Ms. White. On behalf of our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mr. Van Cott, I would like to now speak on a few areas, including transportation, building and grounds, and food services. Our principal, Mr. Bullis, will provide more specifics about our breakfast and lunch service during his portion of his presentation. The first area we would like to discuss tonight that has provided the district with some questions that we would like to provide answers to is transportation. Our district utilizes First Student Bus Company to provide student transportation services. For the reopening of this school year and until further notice, all students, drivers, and attendants must wear a face covering while on the school bus or school van at all times. An allotment of face masks will be provided by the district to First Student in the event any student forgets their mask on any particular day. Students will board the bus or the van and will sit one per seat whenever possible. Children first to board buses should locate an empty seat closest to the back of the bus to sit in. Each new passenger who boards the bus during the route will sit in the next available empty seat closest to the back of the bus. Please note two important issues. Number one, Students from the same household are strongly encouraged to share the same seat. And number two, the district will work in coordination with First Student to socially distance as much as possible on buses and vans. Again, all riders will be wearing face coverings. Depending on the daily number of riders per bus or van, which we expect to be lower based on our parental surveys, the seating model outlined above will be relayed to First Student. Therefore, our school bus drivers can focus their attention on safely driving our students to and from school. First Student drivers, attendants, and mechanics will perform a self-assessment for symptoms of COVID-19 before arriving to work each day daily. First Students' cleaning programs for their vehicles comply with CDC recommendations, such as sanitizing each seat, handle, railing, etc., after each and every AM and every PM route. Additionally, First Student will follow a thorough monthly sanitation process involving specialized equipment using EPA-recommended disinfectants. Bus routes will be the same every day for grades K to 5. Whether you come to school bus routes will be the same every day for grades K to 5. Transportation will be provided to non-public, parochial, private, charter schools, or students whose individualized education program have placed them out of district, whose schools are meeting and conducting in-person education. One final note on busing, please be advised, New York State buses and vans are not permitted to be equipped with hand sanitizer due to its combustible composition and potential liability to the carrier or district. Therefore, students, bus drivers, and attendants must not carry personal bottles of hand sanitizer with them on school buses. The district will have plenty of hand sanitizer located at multiple locations throughout our buildings for all to use. The next area we will be discussing and answering questions we received will be related to building and grounds. One of the primary mitigation measures against the spread of COVID-19 is a disciplined cleaning regimen. To that end, the district formulated a subcommittee to focus solely on enhancing our current cleaning practices. These improvements now include items such as daytime cleaning of high-touch items like doorknobs, keypads, handles, switches, etc., in order to better support daytime cleaning efforts. We will be increasing HVAC filter changes and the use of higher quality filters in unit ventilators. The district has also procured specialized cleaning equipment for all buildings, which will efficiently and effectively deliver disinfectant to large surface areas, as well as hard-to-reach corners and crevices. All daily cleaning records will be maintained and stored by each head custodian as required. The Building and Grounds Department has also worked extremely hard on a number of additional health and safety initiatives, which include cleaning all ductwork, creating and posting age-appropriate signage in both English and Spanish throughout all buildings, closing off traditional water fountains, installing barriers to help separate certain areas, replacing automatic bathroom hand dryers with no-touch paper towel dispensers, and purchasing additional hand washing stations to be allocated to schools based on a building's current facilities and needs. Finally, in the area of building and grounds, the district has outfitted the buildings with a substantial amount of personal protective equipment, also known as PPE, which includes face masks, wipes, sanitizers, and gloves. We are also maintaining a district-wide stockpile of PPE to provide replenishments as necessary. The district will have additional PPE on hand as well, for instance, face shields and gowns if needed. On behalf of the Board of Education and all our staff, we would like to extend a special thank you to our custodial staff for all they have done, are doing, and will do to help keep our students and staff healthy and safe. We thank you. Finally, the last area will be food services. Our principal, Mr. Bullis, will speak specifically to what breakfast and lunch will look like at the Joseph A. Edgar Intermediate School. However, a few points. We will continue to operate an in-house food program whereby breakfast and lunch service will be available every school day, even on your child's virtual and remote learning days. There will be identified meal pickup locations at each school building at the same specified timeframes every day. This information will be posted to our website and will also be communicated by your building. So if for some reason the school district has to move into a 100% virtual model, lunch and breakfast will be available. At the Joseph A. Edgar building, that pickup will be at the back cafeteria door daily from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And that information is posted on our website, should you need it in the future. The district accepts payments through the use of, number one, My School Bucks, which is our online prepayment system found on our website. Number two, receiving a check made payable to Rocky Point Child Nutrition, which requires your student's name and ID number in the memo field. Or number three, by sending in cash. This year, we are highly stressing and asking parents to please use My School Bucks or the use of checks to minimize cash in the buildings and the corresponding time it takes to process dollars and change in comparison to the other payment methods. If you must send in cash with your child in grades K to 5, money should be placed in a sealed envelope and contain the student's name, student ID number if available, teacher's name, and the exact amount of cash within the enclosure clearly written on the sealed envelope. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to remind households to apply each year to the free and reduced price meal program in order to potentially receive no or low cost meals, which bases eligibility on a variety of financial related matters specific to your personal circumstances, which will always remain confidential. Applications can be located on the food services portion of our website. Before turning the microphone over to Mrs. Susan Wilson, one of the questions that we received last night and that we have received from a number of parents is related to the area of testing and COVID testing. There's been some confusion in that there was a misunderstanding that the schools would be conducting testing. And I want to let everybody know that the Joseph A. Edgar School and no other school in the Rocky Point School District will be conducting testing. So there will be no testing done at any of our school buildings. The district will assist families and students and staff with COVID-19 testing as necessary. However, again, the district will not be conducting testing at any school. We will work closely with the Suffolk County Department of Health to support testing. Our posted plan on our website and the reopening section includes where the testing will take place, who will be providing the testing, and under what circumstances the testing will occur. At all times, we will be working closely with the local Department of Health. Students and staff exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 with no other explanation for them will be sent to the school isolation room, which, by the way, each school, including Joseph Edgar, has the nurse's office, as we've always had, and we've added an additional room that will be the COVID isolation room for students or staff that have symptoms, separate and apart from any other part of the building. Anyone who has a temperature of greater than 100 degrees, anyone that has a temperature greater than 100 degrees or has a positive response on the screening questionnaire will be isolated from others and sent home immediately. The school will contact the parent or guardian to pick up their ill child or send a staff member home. Students will remain in the isolation room while awaiting transport home. Each building COVID team will refer such persons to a healthcare provider and provide resources on COVID-19 testing available. There is a list of local testing sites available on the reopening page of our website under testing. Please note that test sites run by New York State never charge for testing. It's free. If you go to a test site operated by local governments, private companies, including pharmacies and medical practices or non-for-profit organizations, you are advised to check with the testing site and your insurer in advance of being tested to confirm you will not be responsible for any fees associated with your test. All Rocky Point Union Free School District staff will complete required daily screenings upon arrival to school, and the district encourages parents and guardians to screen their child before sending them to school. All students will have their temperatures taken before entering any school building. Parents and guardians are encouraged to take their child's temperature before arriving at school and should not send their child to school sick or on medication used to reduce a fever. Again, staff members will complete a daily health screening required prior to admittance to the building. So what happens if a student or staff member has tested positive for COVID-19? A number of people ask that as a question. If the district is advised that a student or staff member has tested positive for COVID-19, the Department of Health will be contacted immediately by the building COVID-19 coordinator. There's one in each building. And the district will assist with contact tracing. If this notification takes place during the school day, the infected person will immediately be isolated and sent home with directions to contact the healthcare provider. Anyone displaying symptoms of COVID-19 or testing positive is required to follow all guidance of the Department of Health and other local agencies related to quarantine and isolation orders. Individuals must provide proper documentation, including a negative test, prior to returning to school or work. At this time, I would like to turn the microphone over to Mrs. Susan Wilson, our Executive Director for Educational Services, who will be speaking on technology and our Chromebook one-to-one initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien, and welcome to the forum. My name is Susan Wilson, the Rocky Point Schools Executive Director for Educational Services here in the district, and I'm going to report on our Chromebook Initiative. I'm very proud of this initiative, and I will let you know that in anticipation of the unknown in the fall, the district ordered 2,860 Acer Chromebooks at the end of last school year. 1,700 of the Chromebooks have arrived and are currently being distributed to our 6 to 12 students this week. Those students will be issued a one-to-one device that they will take to and from school, and that is based upon our hybrid model where they'll be learning both at home and at school. The remaining 1,100 devices, we just found out today, have had a delay. We're hoping that they'll be here by mid-September. That's the target date that we were given today. And I will be following up regularly with our representative from the company to ensure that I have up-to-date information. And if they arrive sooner, they will be delivered to the FJC and JAE school buildings as soon as they arrive, where they will be placed in carts that will be in individual classrooms throughout grades K through 5. Last night, we had some questions, so I do want to answer that question before it comes on during the open forum part at 7 to 7:30. And that is, how will the students receive Chromebooks in the K-5 buildings? Teachers will work very closely with me and my IT team to ensure that all Chromebooks are distributed to the same students each time they are given a Chromebook to use in school. Should the case occur that we need to actually go virtual completely again, then parents would be contacted and Chromebooks would be distributed to all students in grades K to 5, just as we're doing it for our students in grades 6 through 12. I'm also happy to report that we have enough Chromebooks right now for our K to 5 virtual learners that select the full year commitment to our virtual program. More information on that will be forthcoming, and you will be informed as to when the pickup will be. I suggest that you also take the time to look on the school website, where we're constantly adding documents and information regarding the Chromebooks. You can find that located on the top navigation bar under Parents. It's the first link. It's called Chromebook Information. There's a handbook, there's an agreement, and there's many other documents that can help a parent or guardian navigate the new world of Google Meet and Google Classroom, because Google Classroom was not used last spring with our K to 5 students and only some of our 3 to 5 students. Also, at this time, for those that will be receiving a Chromebook for the virtual program, we will communicate more information on warranty repairs or anything that would need to be repaired. Again, the information would be in the Chromebook handbook, and I encourage you to look at that. Additionally, I want to remind all the parents and guardians that today, starting at 7 o'clock, the online form will be active for you to submit questions if you've not heard the answers to your questions yet. And that will be on the school webpage under the announcements section. It will be open from 7 to 7:30, and then we will try to get to as many questions as time permits. Thank you. And at this time, I am going to turn the mic over to Principal Scott Bullis so that he can share with you some of the important Joseph Edgar information.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. My name is Scott Bullis, and I am the newly appointed principal of Joseph A. Edgar Intermediate School. Today, I will walk you through our school day and answer many questions regarding Joseph A. Edgar and our policies and procedures for this year. First, we will talk about arrival. We will be surveying parents to get a better idea of how many students will be taking the bus and how many students will be dropped off each day. We are in the process of revising those procedures to help students enter safely and timely. We will be utilizing all available staff to help process this movement as smoothly as possible, knowing that it'll take more time if there is a dramatic increase in the amount of students arriving by car. After we receive the survey results, a clear plan for arrival will be shared with the community. We do know at this time we will be using multiple doors for arrival all around the building, and that many of our staff will be allocated to assist students and parents during that time. Each student entering the building, whether through a bus or by parent drop-off, will have their temperature checked before entering the building. For students arriving in the morning that choose breakfast, this will be offered to students as usual. They will take their food tray from the cafeteria, but those food items will be eaten within their classrooms. When students are in the classrooms, they will be seated 6 feet apart from any other classmate. There will be an individual desk for each student, as well as an individual chair for each student. The students will be facing the same direction, facing the source of instruction, which is typically the front of the room or the smartboard area. We are using a cohort model in which there is an average of 18 students in each class who will stay together throughout the school day, and they will not intermingle with other groups of students, either on their grade level or throughout the building. We have opened up 6 new class sections within Joseph A. Edgar, which is 2 more classes per grade in order to make this arrangement happen and to prevent the gathering of large groups of students. Within the school day, masks are required at all times, including when students are working at their desks, except when they are eating, during music and physical education classes, if students are able to maintain 12 feet of social distance. In addition, students will be provided short mask breaks that will be provided by the teacher when social distancing can be maintained. Students are encouraged to bring their own masks, and they could bring more than one as well. The school will also provide masks if needed. Mask breaks will occur within their classrooms in multiple ways. In the classroom, teachers have discretion to have mask breaks as they read to their students or as students do independent seat work. Students will have to remain in their seats during that time, and all students would be able to remove their mask for the amount of time selected by the teacher. When the time is up, the teacher will ask students to put their masks back on. This can be done at times when all students are reading, as I said, and working on assignment, but students do not have to take off the mask if they are uncomfortable with that, and they may leave it on if that is their choice. We do suggest that parents work with their children at home if they have not had an opportunity to wear their mask, practice putting it on and taking it off before school starts. Student specials, which include art, music, physical education, library, and social emotional learning, will take place within the student's classroom. Phys ed classes can take place outside, weather permitting, and we'll be using both the old and new gyms here at JAE. Music classes can take place outside as well, and we'll be utilizing the cafeteria for band and orchestra lessons if needed. For student lunch, we want to assure everyone that regular hot lunch will still be offered at school. Students will be eating within their classrooms with those hot lunch orders delivered by the cafeteria staff right to the student's door in the classroom. There will be hand washing stations accessible to students within the hallways, in addition to the regular school bathrooms. We do encourage parents to pay by check or use My School Bucks accounts to eliminate the passing of money among students to teachers and then teachers to cafeteria staff. Students will still have recess, mostly outside, weather permitting, but they will have to remain with their class cohort only. As far as allergies, students will be clustered with students that have similar allergies within their grade level. We are trying to create as little food restrictions as possible as we transition lunches from the cafeteria to the classrooms. But to the extent that students have 504s, IEPs, or other food allergies on a case-by-case basis, they will be honored. If you have any questions in this regard, please reach out to your building administrator. As far as instruction, students should bring their own supplies this year, as they will not be sharing supplies with their classmates. Supply lists will be uploaded onto the JAE website by tomorrow, Wednesday. I will also send an email out to the community just to remind them that those supply lists have been updated. This year, we do have a new English language arts curriculum, which contains an anthology of stories that each student will have their own. So therefore, there will be no shared materials needed for English language arts. For guided reading and small group instruction, we believe our teachers are amazing and creative and will come up with strategies to meet the students' reading, math, social studies, and science needs and provide the appropriate level of instruction. I know many parents have concerns about students making friends and socializing, as students have not been in school for 6 or 7 months and are returning in this extraordinary time. Social emotional learning has been something that we have been talking about throughout this process. We have had a subcommittee of parents, staff, and teachers that have been discussing different ways that we can help our students as they adjust to returning to school. Social emotional activities will be a top priority throughout the year, especially the first weeks of school. In addition, as you heard, we will have new technology within the classrooms, including Google Classroom, in which we'll be utilizing Chromebooks, which will also be the same technology and format that would be used if we had to close at any point and go to full virtual instruction. So we want our students comfortable with those materials and those devices. For dismissal, we are still working on a dismissal plan as we are with arrival, and we will be using the results of the community survey regarding parents' intent to have their children take the bus to and from school, or we'll be driving them to pick them up and drop them off each day. Parents will not be entering the building to pick up or drop off students at any time, unless it is an emergency or a health concern. We anticipate the dismissal plan will be distributed to parents soon after we have the results of that survey. We did receive a few more questions of items that did not fit into our school day that I'd like to answer. I know there were some questions regarding the grade 3 ice cream social or orientation. We are working on a plan to have our 3rd grade students and a parent come to the building, but in smaller groups to meet the principal and take a tour of the building. That plan will be released later this week, but we are still looking at ways to make sure that our 3rd grade students have a chance to visit the building before the first day of school. There was a parent with concern that the district have substitutes ready or staff ready in case a teacher is sick and has to miss an extended period of time. And I can assure you that the district and JAE have substitutes that are ready, that have worked in the building previous years, and are able to take over at a moment's notice if that needs to happen for staff. And lastly, will the district be offering before and after school care? Before and after school programs will continue as they had in the past to provide parents and families with the support to meet their needs if they need longer before and after school care. Thank you, everyone. I was hoping to be introduced to the JAE family in a little bit of a different way, but I have to say that I am extremely excited to be a part of Rocky Point. And although these are difficult times, I assure you that we will work together to make the best of this school year for all of our students, family, and staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bullis, and welcome to Rocky Point. We're so glad to have you be a part of our Rocky Point family, and we're looking forward to having you as our new principal of the JAE building. Can't wait for all your families, students, and parents to get a chance to meet you in person. So at this point, we're going to be answering some of the questions that are coming in live to our form. So some of the questions that we received, I will be answering. Some Mr. Bullis or Mrs. Carlson or Mrs. Wilson or Miss White, dependent upon the question. So one of the first questions that we received are the created cohorts on the same bus routes. So the students, and I think what the person is asking is my child's class of 18 kids going to be a separate bus? And the answer is no. Now, the bus routes are done by neighborhood geography, and that is the way that we have to bus students in to school and home to school. So that's why we're asking parents to strongly consider driving, if they are able to, their students to and from school to help prevent that commingling of students. But it is important for everyone to know, no, that's not a separate cohort on the bus route. The next question is, will there be mask lessons? So we wanted to let everyone know that we have some very child-friendly links that are soon to be posted on our website. And they are great resources for teaching children how to use masks and to become familiar with that. There is actually, just want to grab another piece of paper here. There's actually a great document from the American Academy of Pediatrics that gives top 10 questions regarding masks in children. And one of the questions that they ask is, what are the ways to increase my child's ability to wear a mask all day? And I know many parents of children who are younger have that as a concern, and we understand why. So I'm just going to read to you what their answer says. They say, some children may need help getting used to wearing masks all day. And mask endurance is a new term used to describe the ability to wear a mask for prolonged periods of time. So they ask you to start working on mask endurance with children a few weeks before school begins, which is where we're at right now. Maybe find a fun design or a pattern that's interesting to your child, and initially have your child practice wearing their mask for small increments of time. Try wearing a mask with your child for 10 minutes once a day, and then slowly build up longer periods 3 or 4 times a day. Parents are encouraged to wear their own masks to help model the behavior. Parents should keep it relaxed and fun, and we're going to do the same. Children can adapt to new situations easily, and they should be praised for helping to keep their classmates and community safe. The next question is, will Rocky Point teachers be teaching in the virtual program? So the virtual program, that's going to be in addition to our 5-day in-person model at the K-5 building, will be a blend of live synchronous and asynchronous instruction provided by either Rocky Point School District personnel, teachers, certified teachers, or through enrollment in the Eastern Suffolk BOCES online elementary program, which will also be taught by certified staff in a cohort of Eastern Suffolk BOCES students from possibly surrounding school districts. The regional virtual program, as mentioned, provides synchronous and asynchronous grade level standards-based instruction, features standard-based instruction in core subjects incorporating inquiry-based activities, has electives such as art and music included in the model, a set traditional schedule that will be utilized with an expectation that students are in virtual attendance during regular school hours. Attendance is reported to the school district. Grades and progress reports are maintained by the virtual learning teacher, and technology is also provided. Another question that was received is the isolation room in a separate building? No, the isolation room is in each of our 4 buildings. So we will have the nurse's office, which is where students who do not have a temperature or do not have symptoms related to COVID will go for any number of typical reasons that students would go to the nurse. And then the isolation room, which is located in another room in each of the buildings, will be where students will go if they have symptoms, so they can be isolated in that separate location and room. So those are the questions that I have as of now. And I can turn it over to Mr. Bullis, our principal, to answer another series of questions. Thank you.
So we received several questions virtually that I would like to answer now. One of the questions was, where did the extra space within the building come from? I'm assuming that means for the extra classrooms that we added, the 6 at JAE. What we did is we reallocated classrooms that had other uses. For example, we had 2 computer labs in the building that we were able to look at the considerations that each student will have a Chromebook for this year. So we're able to take what were 2 PC computer labs and then turn them into full classrooms. So we looked at those opportunities. And since some of our classes will be push-in, for example, some of our specials will now be pushing in, we were able to use what were those classrooms to add in the 6 extra rooms around the building as well. So each of our classes will be in a regular classroom. They will not be in larger spaces, for example, an auditorium or a gymnasium. We are not using those for regular classrooms. Each class will have their own regular classroom with the appropriate technology and space. A parent asked if a child and family opts for the 100% virtual program, can they attend the end of year moving up and dance? To be very, very honest, we have not planned for June at this time. We are looking at an ever-changing world. We have limited timeframes to look at the opening of school. At this point, I would not be able to subject an answer regarding a moving up dance and activity. That being said, we want all of our students, they are still Joseph A. Edgar students. We don't want them to feel that they are not a part of our school here, despite choosing a virtual option. We understand that is a difficult decision made by families, and we will do everything we can to keep them involved in everything we do here at Joseph A. Edgar throughout the year, including special opportunities such as that. So we will do everything in our power to do that, but I cannot commit to a full answer at this time, depending on circumstances. We do not know what June will look like. But again, they are our students. They are still part of the Joseph A. Edgar family, and we'll do everything we can to keep them included in all activities. There was a question, did the school consider at least one nut-free classroom? There is, I think, at least one peanut-free classroom at each grade level, as we clustered students with similar allergies due to food, snack, and lunch contamination. So we do have that at each grade level. Will there be somebody outside the bathrooms to ensure there are no crowds? Our teachers will only be permitting one child to leave the classroom to go to the bathroom at a time to limit the crowding. And there was a question regarding cleaning of the bathrooms. The bathrooms are scheduled for regular cleaning throughout the day. And we also reallocated some of our staff that typically comes in later in the day or in the evening to come in during the school day to provide additional regular cleaning throughout the day as well. So we want to make sure that while the students are in the building is getting regular cleaning as well. So we reallocated some of our custodial staff that worked in the evenings to work during the day to assist with that.
Okay, we get a couple additional questions regarding, one parent asked about specials. How will they work with 100% virtual? I could tell you we had some discussion about the possibility of involving specials on a synchronous time, perhaps when that classroom is scheduled to have a special. And we are also considering some asynchronous videos recorded of different lessons that could be taught for all of the specials that would be options for the students in grades 3 through 5 during the week. So again, this hasn't been worked out fully at this point. We're still in the process of developing a final schedule of what it would look like for the 100% virtual option. Obviously, we have parents that have till Thursday to select this, so we need to know how many students, and then we're going to be working further to build that final schedule and what that model will look like. One another parent asked how many Google Meets per week we'll be holding for the 100% virtual model. And again, that answer is kind of similar. The number of, we're considering blocks of time, such as like 2 blocks of a morning Google Meets, and then some asynchronous instruction that's independent, and then having a lunch break, and again, then having 2 models or 2 blocks of time in the afternoon with synchronous and asynchronous instruction and learning taking place during that time as well. The same parent asked, can I change my mind? And that answer is no. We are looking for a commitment at the time you're filling out the form. If you are choosing the 100% virtual model, you are committing to that model for the full school year. Another question is, how will my student get band, clubs, PE, and art? I guess the PE and art we already kind of talked about, because that is the specials that we just talked about. We are considering offering certain clubs virtually. We have not finalized that, but we do have teachers and staff members who are the supervisors for clubs, and we are considering and hoping that some of our clubs will be running virtually, and therefore, if you're choosing or selecting that 100% virtual model, you can then participate in that club virtually as well. And again, more to come with that. Again, we that probably won't start right at the beginning of the school year. We'll have to get acclimated to our new surroundings and our new way of existing in schools, and then we will be involving those clubs and hopefully getting some clubs going virtually. Thank you.
There's a question related to accommodations and how they can be implemented if a child has a 504 plan or an IEP, if the students have to remain in their seats. So it may be necessary to modify the implementation of accommodations, but for the most part, accommodations will be able to be provided in the traditional manner because we're in class all day, each day. So items such as preferential seating, of course, we can still have the student sit near the teacher or close to instruction or near a door. Teachers are still allowed to refocus and redirect, provide visual and auditory prompts. There can still be positive behavior supports. Students who require breaks as part of their accommodations, that may need to be modified a little bit. If students usually, maybe they can stand up instead of taking a walk down the hallway. Instead, they're going to just stand up, maybe by their desk. Students are allowed to move in the room. However, all the students will be wearing a mask.
Okay, we received a number of questions regarding the desk shields that were mentioned earlier in the program and why there are desk shields at JAE but not FJC. There are desk shields at both FJC and JAE. That was something that has been added, newly added. So just to be clear and to clarify for everyone, there will be desk shields for all students at FJC and JAE. Another question that we received here is, if a student is quarantined, how does my student get the instruction? So that's kind of a tricky question because there's so many different scenarios that are possible here. So let's say, for example, a student is test positive and we have to quarantine a class, or we have to quarantine an entire building for maybe multiple cases. First of all, we're going to work with the Department of Health to get that guidance, and then we're going to make decisions in conjunction with them. But if that was to be the case, then we would move to a full virtual 100% model where students would be learning from home during the quarantine or until it has been deemed safe that we return. That means all students in the class, all students in a section of the building or the entire building, or maybe even the entire district would be learning from home, and it would become virtual. However, just for the record, if there are individual students who are sick and they have an extended period of time where they are sick, more than 5 days, they could speak to their school if it's necessary to have home instruction. And that would be typically 1 hour per day after a straight 5-day absence due to an illness. And that would require medical documentation. I think Mrs. Crossan already answered this but I just want to clear up a couple of things with this because it says, if homeschooled, can we come back at any time? So I just want to clarify the different options that we have, because there is a 100% virtual option for our kindergarten through 5 students, which is our Joseph A. Edgar students. And if you elect to have that as your program for your child, you would be committing to a year program with the virtual 100%. The reason why we have to do that is because we wouldn't be able to have students moving in and out from virtual to in-person learning, because we have to keep our class sizes limited for social distancing. And so we really wouldn't be able to just have students move in and out fluidly as they choose or change their minds. So we really need the commitment on the form that was sent to parents by this Thursday at 3 p.m. so that we can continue to finalize our placement for our Joseph A. Edgar students and be able to get out the name of the teacher to your children. Excuse me? Yeah, and also homeschooling. So homeschooling is where you as a parent elect to be the teacher for your child. So homeschooling requires you to actually withdraw your child from the district, and you become responsible solely for the education of your child or children. It requires you working with the district to complete paperwork and a commitment to submit paperwork of evidence of work being completed. And we have information on our frequently asked questions document. There's a link related to that question that will take you right to a form that you can fill out if that is an option that you would prefer. The next question is an interesting question, and it says, how do teachers feel about returning? So I will tell you that we have the best teachers around, and they certainly cannot wait to see your children. Just like the questions that you have, they also have questions. And they also have their own concerns. Everybody is learning how to adjust in this new world of a pandemic that nobody could have ever predicted or expected. And they're working in a very collaborative way with the district, and that's been demonstrated throughout the reopening process. Many of our teachers committed to meetings throughout the summer to give their advice and opinions, as did many of our parents and community members and Board of Education members. And all of that input was really invaluable, because we really do need to know how teachers and staff and parents and kids, everybody, administrators, how everyone's feeling about coming back, so that we can create the most successful reopening process for our students and for our staff. So I will tell you that they're excited to see your kids. They want to get back into a classroom more than anything. I think if you talk to any one of our teachers, they will tell you there is nothing more that they would want than to be full in with a complete class of students at the number that they're used to, and being back to what it was prior to the pandemic. However, they are some of the most dedicated and committed teachers around, and they're working day in and day out with us to figure out the best way to navigate this new world. And so far, I have to tell you that we appreciate their collaboration and commitment to your children, and we look forward to a successful opening, and we can't wait to see your kids. So those are the questions that I have, and I'll now pass it over to Ms. White for additional questions.
We received a question regarding FM trainers for students and providing teachers or therapists with clear face masks. So in regards to the FM trainers, they can work just as they typically worked in the past. So the student would either have a speaker set in the classroom, or they have their individual trainer with their ear, and the teacher will wear the microphone and the teacher's voice will be amplified. So there'd be no change in that. As far as students who receive speech and language therapy, sometimes it is necessary for the student to be able to see the therapist's mouth and how words are formed or sounds are formed. So in those situations, we will be providing masks to the therapists that are clear so that children can see the therapist's lips and mouth movement. Additionally, if a student has a hearing impairment, and this is regardless of grade level, if a student has a hearing impairment and does rely on lip reading as a strategy, those teachers will also be provided with masks that have the clear face, the clear front, so that the student can see the teacher's mouth and lips.
Some additional questions. Will students be directed to wash hands before and after lunch and snack? Yes, students will be reminded to wash their hands before and after meals. We did add portable hand washing stations to the hallways that are accessible for students. I do know that some students and some parents have reached out to me asking if it is acceptable that students use a wipe or sanitizer that they brought from home in place of going into bathrooms, if that's their choice, and that is absolutely acceptable as well. When is the first day of school for JAE students for in-class learning? That will be Thursday, September 3rd, will be the first day of in-school learning for those students. Will there be a grade 3 social? We do not know if we're able to do it as a full ice cream social as we have done in the past. But as I said earlier, we want to make sure that the students do have some kind of orientation or tour of the building before starting on September 3rd. So they will be invited to attend in smaller groups. This is still scheduled for next Tuesday, August 25th, and we anticipate a flyer to go home tomorrow with specific information about that event. But we definitely want to have an orientation for our third grade students so they have an opportunity to visit JAE. Will bike racks be available, as that will be a mode of transportation for children? This is a great question that, being so new, I do not have 100% sense that we have bike racks at JAE. If they do not exist, this is a great idea and something that we'll absolutely pursue. If the community feels like students may ride their bike to school, we want to give them a safe place to store those. So this is something we will have to look into, as I do not know if we currently have them. Will JAE kids need to carry their notebooks and belongings to and from school each day? Students will not have to carry all of their materials to and from school. I'm guessing that the thought would be that in case we close, or as far as storage in the classroom, students will still have a place to keep their items. They still have a desk within their classroom, and they will have some kind of bins or bags next to their desk to store materials. But as far as the concern that we may have to shut down and students will not have their belongings, essential items can and will be going to and from school but the students do not have to empty out their desk each and every day and carry that to and from school. But again, we will be sending home essential materials consistently. How will parent IDs be checked when picking up children if everyone is wearing a mask? We have not worked out our full dismissal procedure, and this is something that we are consistently discussing and looking for the best possible ways to ensure the safety of our students during dismissal, and we have not finalized that procedure as of yet. A parent missed the information about band and clubs. Are they going to be offered? Yes, band and orchestra lessons will still be offered during the day. And as far as clubs, we are looking at ways to offer some of the clubs virtually in replacing the in-person club. When will parents find out who the teachers will be? This process has been delayed as we have several factors, one of them being we have parents still choosing if they would like the 100% virtual option, and that deadline is this Thursday. So we don't anticipate having those results until the end of the day Thursday. Those students would then need to be clustered into classes and grades. Obviously, students need to know their teachers before the first day of school, but we do not anticipate this to happen until the week before school starts at some point.
Okay, we have a couple more questions related to masks. And the first question is, can a child wear a face shield instead of a mask? And the answer is they can wear a face shield, but they must also wear a face mask under the shield. So it's very important to know it's not a substitute for a mask, but they certainly can wear that in addition for additional coverage. So yes, children can wear a face shield, but it's not instead of a mask, it's in addition to a mask. The next question asks, why do students have to wear masks if they're 6 feet apart? So in order to make the indoor classroom setting as safe as we possibly can, mask wearing has been advised at all times, as noted by the American Academy of Pediatrics, from our CDC, and from our health department. It's sometimes difficult for children to stay 6 apart at this age that we're talking about with Joseph A. Edgar. So masks can help prevent the spread of the virus and respiratory droplets released when coughing and sneezing. In addition, masks will also help prevent children from spreading germs by touching their nose and mouth. Mask wearing is a simple and effective measure we can all take to help keep our children and our families safe. And we appreciate your cooperation with that. Thank you. The next question related to masks is, well, what happens to students who refuses to wear a mask? So one of the things that over the years in Rocky Point, being here for so many years, I've had many parents say, I don't understand how you can get an entire room full of hundreds of kids to be quiet in such a short period of time, and I can't get my one child at home to listen to what I'm saying. And that's the benefit of being an educator and working with kids in the way that we do, is that there's a lot of influence and power in schools in numbers. So when kids are seeing other kids all wearing masks and teachers wearing masks and an expectation that's consistent, we have great success with that. However, any child who's having difficulty or is having a reason why they're not able to wear the mask, we're going to work with that child, and if necessary, the family, to strategize and come up with ways that we can help them to be more successful. It's like with anything in schools, our teachers are nurturing and caring and want the best for our kids, and it's not going to change with this circumstance as well. So we will do everything we can to work with students to promote them wearing the mask successfully. The next question says, will a student get a Chromebook if they are COVID-19 positive in quarantine? So again, this is similar to the question I answered before and the scenarios that I mentioned. But certainly if we have a class or we have a building or we have a district that needs to be educated from home and move to a full virtual model, we will make sure that students have their individual Chromebooks in order to do that. The last question that I have is, if my child has a cold, can they come to school? And so I would strongly suggest that anybody that has a child that has cold symptoms should keep their children at home and make sure that they have time to rest and recover, and should really only send children to school that are healthy. Obviously, COVID-19 has symptoms that can be related to a cold, so we would rather you do what's best for your child and everybody and not ever send them to school sick, especially in the circumstances that we're under right now. And we appreciate your support with that. Thank you.
My next question, a parent was wondering about textbooks. Will they be distributed and can they be taken home? While not all of our course areas or subject areas have textbooks, the ones that do, many of those materials are also accessible virtually. For example, our new ELA series has a textbook, but all the materials are accessible virtually. So in the case of that, there would be no need for the child to take home that book unless there was a desire from the family to do so. But we want to spare our children from having to carry home very large, very heavy books in that respect. Will the allergy classrooms also contain non-allergy students, and how will meals be handled? As we have done in the past, there will be students with allergies and students without allergies within the same classroom. We did cluster students that have similar allergies in a room, but they do not fill up a whole 18-person classroom. So there will be students with non-allergies in that room, and therefore we will be respectful of the allergies, and there will be food restrictions within the classroom.
We have two more questions related to special education services. One question asks if they choose 100% virtual for their child who receives special education services, what would that look like? And right now, my answer is similar to what Mrs. Crossan has stated earlier. Any student receiving special education services will receive synchronous and asynchronous learning and instruction equivalent to that offered to all other students who are electing the 100% virtual option. So it will be provided in a similar manner. The next question is, how are one-to-one aides supposed to maintain social distancing? And one-to-one aides will be in closer proximity to the student. If a student has a one-to-one aide, there is a reason that they have a one-to-one aide, and they require support within the classroom, and the aide will be able to provide that support to the student. The aide will be wearing a face mask, as will the student, and the aides will also have access to additional PPE, such as face shields and gloves.
Okay, I have a variety of different questions on different topics. The first is, if a student is home with a fever and cough, do we have to have a COVID test to return? And the second one is very similar. Do we need a COVID test that is negative to return? I think it depends on the situation. If it is clear that a student was in the school building and exhibiting all the signs that could potentially be a COVID case, we would ask that that child get tested. If you just keep a child home because they have a headache or something that is not necessarily COVID, they will not necessarily need a COVID test to return. So I think it's really going to have to be handled on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the symptoms are and what ailments were really impacting that child at that time. Next question is, what are the additional safeguards for the isolation room? The isolation room definitely is going to have some partitions separating different areas for different students. It's going to have a person who is equipped with the proper PPE so that we have the students separated, and the staff member who's supervising before the parent can get here will not have that direct interaction. Well, obviously the students will be masked and have the PPE appropriate as well. But again, there are going to be separate areas within that room partitioned off so that we can isolate that student as best as possible before they are able to leave the school building. The next question, please explain the music program for the face-to-face students. Our music teachers across the district have been working diligently on alternative type programs that they could do with students. In order to participate in any singing, choral, and musical instrument playing, they have to be 12 feet apart. So they are looking into the possibility of being able to social distance by 12 feet in order to have some small group, musical practicing and musical learning. However, they are also coming up with other activities that involve the music, the music curriculum, so that they can continue learning about different aspects of the music program. And they also have to do this without sharing any type of instruments or the small like tambourines or things like that they kind of use. So they're working hard to just develop alternative methods of instructing for our music students so that they have some aspect of music education. My next question is, how will parents be notified of a positive COVID case? Is there a number of cases that will close the school? Like Dr. O'Brien said earlier, we're going to be working very closely with the Department of Health and following their guidance on the contact tracing part that we have to play. We'll be supplying all that information that they are requesting, and that we do not have a specific number that we'll say, but we as administrators of this school district are going to be obviously following these numbers closely and making the best decision for the best of the health and safety of all of our students and staff in the building. But there is no number that is actually identified as a number that would indicate a necessary closure. Again, if it's isolated to a certain class or cohort, that could be a possibility that class or cohort stays, out of school and learns virtually without having to make the whole school close. But again, those situations are going to have to be decided upon once the information is known and how it all develops. Another person asked, do the desks for students have plastic surrounds each individual desk? And yes, again, this was a request that was recently brought to our attention, and that's why I know Dr. O'Brien mentioned that. Another question said, how come FJC doesn't? And they do as well. We just placed this order, and we are trying to have them delivered prior to the start of the school year. And we hope that happens for all of the students in FJC and JAE because they have been ordered. And my last question is, if we have a return of face-to-face and don't like it, can we switch to 100% virtual? And that answer is no. If you need to decide by this Thursday at 3 p.m. if you would like the 100% virtual, unfortunately for staffing purposes and for the structure of our classes and the maximum class sizes that we can have, we're not able to make that switch of starting even in person and then going to virtual because there's a limit in that area as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Crossan. I have 3 questions. The first question is related to the North Shore Youth Council. So we will have the before and after care available for our students at the Joseph A. Edgar building and FJC building, if there are parents listening from the Frank J. Carasetti building as well. So there will be the before care and after care programs run by the North Shore Youth Council. And the question is, will they follow the same guidelines? Yes, we work very closely with the North Shore Youth Council and meet with them on a regular basis and have shared with them our expectations and certainly the guidelines that are required through our health department and New York State Education Department. And it's actually part of our building plan. If you can access the building plan online that was submitted in July, you can see there's an appendix that is related to the North Shore Youth Council plan that was submitted. But yes, they will be mandating masks and keeping students socially distanced, as we are doing in all buildings, including the Joseph A. Edgar building. So here's a very specific question. Will a child with a stomach virus be placed in the isolation room with others with a fever? And the answer to that question is that students who exhibit symptoms of COVID-19 will be placed in the isolation room. And those are students that have a fever of over 100 degrees, shortness of breath, and/or exhibiting cough. There's also a question about the number of students on the school bus. Can I say exactly the number that will be on our buses? I can't give you an exact number that will be on the buses, but I will tell you that from our survey that we put out to the community, there was a large response to driving students to and from school. If I can remember correctly, I think it was upwards in 60%. Meaning that would be, 6 out of every 10 kids that were typically on a bus would not be on a bus anymore. So that would drastically limit the number of students that are on a bus. But keep in mind, that will drastically increase the number of students being dropped off and picked up at school as well. So one problem solved, another problem that we're working on to figure out as well. But I just wanted to let you know that, the information regarding the bus company is also on our plan. If you need to check that out as well, there's an appendix from the First Student Bus Company that's there. And we will strongly encourage you to drive your kids to school and pick them up if you're able to. Otherwise, the bus certainly is available for you. Okay, do we have any other questions? We have a few more. Mr. Bullis will be answering. He's got 3 more.
We have the last 3 questions that were entered virtually. The question is, how many mask breaks and how long will they be? This is hard to give an answer in exacts, as these breaks will take place multiple times throughout the day in multiple capacities. For example, if a teacher brings a class outside for independent reading time, the students may be outside for 20 plus minutes without their masks off. And there might be times that they have a 5-minute break with their mask off in the classroom while they complete an independent activity. So our teachers are very aware that being in the classroom for 7+ hours with their mask on is extremely difficult task for any person, let alone children. And they understand that these breaks are a requirement. They're part of our plan. But as far as specifics of times, how often and how long, there is not an exact plan. But the teachers understand that we're looking at giving students breaks within each activity that they do, or at the beginning or end of each activity or lesson that they do. So that will take place at multiple times for multiple lengths of time throughout the day. Are the supply lists the same for 100% virtual kids? At this point, there have not been supply lists created for the 100% virtual students. That being said, I'm sure there will be some overlap of materials, of basic materials, such as pencils and other items that you already may have at home. So I would suggest, if you are choosing the 100% virtual model, that you hold up on purchasing any supplies until you get that specific supply list, unless you're in need of basic school supplies at home. Will kids wear masks when on recess? If we are in indoor recess, obviously students will be wearing their masks during that time once they finish eating. For outdoor recess, students do not have to wear their mask if they maintain proper social distancing of 6 feet. However, if students are running around and being physical, that social distance requirement goes from 6 feet to 12 feet. So while they're outside, they do not need to wear their mask as long as they're keeping that proper social distance. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we have answered the questions that were submitted. And if for any reason your question didn't get answered or you have an additional question, please feel free to email Mr. Bullis, the JE principal, and we will get back to you with an answer as quickly as possible. We thank you for participating and being a part of our JAE Reopening Parent Forum. We look forward to your children coming back to school, and we thank you for your input, cooperation, understanding, patience. I could go on and on with our reopening process, but again, you know, there's no other community like Rocky Point that comes together in a time like this, and we're looking forward to our students coming back and seeing your children back at school. Thank you. Have a great night.